Słuchasz podcastu Zaplecze Sportu. Ja nazywam się Mateusz Gawełczyk i zapraszam Cię na podcast, w którym łączymy teorię i praktykę sportu. W tym podcaście wraz z gośćmi przedstawiam zagadnienia dotyczące żywienia i suplementacji, psychologii, fizjologii i teorii treningu w łatwy i przystępny sposób. Jeżeli poszukujesz rzetelnych informacji popartych badaniami naukowymi i doświadczeniem praktyków sportu, interesuje Cię, w jaki sposób możesz poprawić swoje wyniki w sporcie oraz jak wygląda życie sportowca od kuchni, ten podcast jest dla Ciebie. Zapraszam na Zaplecze. Cześć, witam Cię serdecznie w 11. odcinku podcastu Zaplecze Sportu, którego gościem jest Inaki de la Parra. Mistrz Świata na dystansie Ultraman, współzałożyciel grupy treningowej Way to Champ, trener wielu wybitnych zawodników z całego świata, a ten podcast jest dlatego wyjątkowy, że po raz pierwszy odbędzie się on po angielsku. Było to dla mnie nie lada wyzwanie, ale mam nadzieję, że rozmowa Wam się spodoba, bo dla mnie Inaki jest niesamowitym człowiekiem. Zapraszam na Zaplecze. Hello, Inaki. I'm really happy that you joined me in this podcast. First of all, tell us what you do and what is your relationship with sport.
Thank you for the invitation, Mateusz, and thank you for the audience. I understand that most of our listeners are from Poland, but my Polish is not yet to the level, so I will try to do it in English. So, I was born in 83. Always involved with a sport at some extent since I was a kid, and also in business. So I see myself as a businessman trying to do sport constantly since I was a kid. I started working back when I was 13 years old in the family business. Mm-hmm. And I started sport back when I was 4 years old. I was just telling you that my first sport, and actually it's the only one I've been doing all my life, has been shooting. So, shooting. Then I moved to Hayalai. It's a sport connected with Spain, pelota vasca, which is kind of front on. So kind of weird sport. I did that for a long period of time as well. Then I switched into boxing and Muay Thai.
Really?
Yeah. Some jiu-jitsu as well. And almost at the end of my university, I started to swim a little bit. I learned swimming when I was an adult. So maybe about when I was 20 years old. And once I was out of the university, I heard about triathlon. That was probably 2006 or 2007. And that's when I joined triathlon and cycling and swimming and running as an endurance event. So since then, I've been involved with triathlon. So basically all my life involved in sport. I forgot to mention also motorsport. I was driving for Porsche, for BMW as a test driver.
Really?
Yeah.
For how long?
That was for a long time, maybe 5 or 6 years.
So you're a good driver.
I used to, yeah. I even raced formula cars and in some competitions in the track. So not only as an instructor and coach, but also as a pilot myself. So yeah, definitely those were expensive, but good times, because it's an expensive sport. And if you are not sponsored, it's even more difficult than triathlon or cycling. It's really, really expensive.
Did you have sponsor then? Or?
Yeah, back then I had some sponsors, so it was easier to keep doing it. And once you're working for one of those big brands, you get the chance to actually drive pretty cool cars and don't have to pay for the tires or for the brakes.
Sounds like a dream.
So it was pretty cool. It also helped me a lot back when I was a child. I told you I was shooting. That was my first certification as a coach. It's when I was 12 or 13 was my first coaching instruction. So I got to be a coach for pistol shooting back when I was 13 or 12 years old. Then I started to learn how to be a coach in driving, and at the same time to pay for my boxing and combat sport classes. I needed to show my skills. So I was giving classes as well. So I was learning how to be a coach back then when I was a child, and a little bit the same story happened with the driving and later on with the triathlon. So yeah, always involved with coaching, sport, maybe not at professional level in all the sports I played, but at, let's say, very elite level, and in some of those making money. Always doing business as well on the side, either involved with commerce or coaching or, trading goods or giving consultancy services for some companies. So yeah, pretty fun.
I thought that I have contact with many different kind of sports, but you are master in this area.
Yeah, probably it's, I always been very curious since I was little, and, this curiosity also, sometimes it's good and bad, because the boardroom, you get really bored sometimes about doing some stuff, and then you want to change and constantly change. So yeah, that's probably part of my history, changing stuff constantly. But at the end, you remain in the two big areas, which for me has been coaching, sport, and at the same time doing business. So I think I will keep doing that, because somehow you need to do business to survive. And I really like coaching and sport to some extent. I don't know if all my life I'm gonna do triathlon or motorsport, but I'm sure I'm gonna be to some extent involved in sport, and always involved in coaching and mentoring people.
Okay. Why triathlon, not other kind of sport, and how long are you involved in triathlon?
Triathlon, I think I started back in 2006 or 2007. So
it's not so long.
It's not so long, probably like 12 years.
13
years, yeah. I remember back in the day, I was doing some postgraduate studies right after university, and in one of the classes, somebody showed something about Ironman, and I was like, "Wow, what's that?" And then I asked the distances, and I said, "Wow, that's crazy! That's distances you do in the car." And I mean, I was running back in the day, but like for when you are a boxer, or you're fighting in fighting sports, or you're racing motorsport, you get to do some running, even some cycling, but never to the extent of those distances. Especially the swimming, when they say like 3.8 kilometers, it was like, wow, that's huge in the sea. So it got me excited, that challenge, that idea. So I said, maybe I will try it. And yeah, I just give it a try. The first year I did what nobody is supposed to do. So I did my first Olympic, 270.3s, and I think I did 2 Ironmans, and I got injured and overtrained, and I thought I knew how to do this. And of course it was a total mistake. But then I started to learn about the science of sport. I work with many mentors that gave me some tools to help others and help myself to succeed in the sport at a pretty high level. And yeah, I was back then with Nicola Romanov from Russia. I learned a lot from him. Lance Watson from Canada. Alan Cousins from Australia, and many other people that has influences. Also athletes. I got to know hand-to-hand, many professional athletes, especially from Canada, from United States, that provided a lot of insights on how things should be done and what you shouldn't be doing if you want to succeed. So yeah, it was a pretty fun time, and yeah.
So, like for many amateurs here in Poland, the first motivation was the movie from Iron Man.
Yeah, for me, to tell the truth, the first motivation was there is a video of Tim Hoyt, which is a dad pushing his kid.
Yeah, I know the story.
Yeah, the video of Can. So that was actually the first video I saw back in that postgraduate study course that I was doing. And that was what really hooked me up. So I said, I remember thinking like, wow, if the love of this dad is putting him in the place to push his kid and doing all that stuff with an extra person, I said, probably it's possible. So I will give it a shot. So yeah, that was the first, let's say, motivator.
So you've trained regularly triathlon for last 13 years. How long did you compete as a pro?
I started from 2006-7 to 2010. I gained a lot of experience. I started to understand what has to be done, what should not be done. Like I was starting to get it. So back in 2010, 2011, I was starting to train at let's say a high level, and I was starting to get the idea on what elite triathlon would mean. And I decided to take the risk back then to leave my work. As I said before, I was, working since I was like 13 years old. So that gave me some financial freedom. I had my house back then already. So I decided to sell my house, quit my job, and finance my own professional development career. Because, of course, if you want to start as a pro, when you are 20-something and you don't have any results, nobody's going to sponsor you. Even some really high-level athletes, they can get sponsored. So for me at that point, it was like a dream, So I said, okay, I'm going to change my dream. Like when you will start your business, you invest everything you have in yourself.
But you haven't got family then. I mean, wife, kids.
I was already married. Yeah, I got married in 2009. So I didn't have kids back then, but I was married to Kasia, my Polish wife.
Oh my God.
So
and
yeah.
She let you sell the house.
Yeah, I mean, she has always given me all the support needed till today to do whatever I wanted. So basically, I think that's something I love her for, because she has never stopped me. Maybe in many stupidities, yes, but in very important things of my life, she has always encouraged me to not only to start them, but to keep on track, because sometimes you are about to drop off and you need that people to remind you that it's time to stick to what you believe. And yeah, definitely Kasia has played a big role in all this. So yeah, I sold my house. I started to, it was, I remember perfectly, because I was promoted to the commercial director of the company I was working with. I was there all my life. It was connected to the family, but I was not treated as a family member. And I started from the very, very low position when I was 13, 12 years old. And got to commercial director. And I remember getting to commercial director and basically saying, okay, so it's over. Thank you. See you guys. I will be a professional athlete. And everybody,
I've done everything what I
yeah,
can.
like everybody's like, but you even haven't raised professionally. Like how are you going to survive? And yeah, so I started back then, and it was a painful but really enjoyable path that took me, let's say about 10 years, and until I retired, which was this year.
Okay. Do you like the risk? Because it was risky.
I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I think I learned that from my family. My mother was always an entrepreneur. My dad, my grandparents from my dad's side, from my mom's side, and so I'm carrying on to whatever I do. So I think the risk is there, but the risk taking or the risk management is differently seen by people who is entrepreneur. So yeah, I would consider myself a risk taker in that position.
Okay. Let's back to triathlon. What is the biggest achievement in that sport?
My biggest
personal, because I know what is the biggest from the results at the end, but what is my
biggest achievement in triathlon has been staying consistent for more than 10 years training, regardless of the results, because it's a roller coaster, like in real life, like when you have a job or when you have a wife or when you have kids or family or whatever. Just to stay consistent and knowing that it's gonna get better in the long term. So when you have really, really highs or really, really lows, that you are conscious, and that I was conscious enough to know that that's not the reality. The reality is an average, but the average has to tend positively. So I'm really proud that I was able and that I'm still able to give the best of myself, regardless of the outcomes, either if they are good or bad, and stay on the path of, in this case, of doing triathlon itself as a pro or as an age grouper or as part of my life.
Mm-hmm. As your dietitian, I know how your training plan looks like, but if you could tell us a bit more about how many hours per week you train and how it looks like.
When I was really, really training seriously or now?
Maybe both.
Okay, so back in the day when I was training really, really seriously, it was going to be something between 1,000 to 1,200 hours per year. Mm-hmm. Being the vast majority of that, maybe between 50 to 60% cycling and 20% swimming and 20% running, or something like.
It was like
that.
It was like 40 hours per week. Sometimes.
Yeah, of course, this is unsustainable in the long term, but yeah, like the really, really high peak weeks before competitions, or like when you are building a race, yeah, it can go up to 40 hours. And that was probably a few weeks in my entire life. Those weeks you want to always talk about, but it's not through the year, There is also weeks where you are training 2 hours, which is basically walking in the off season. So yeah, I don't like to talk about average week hours, but yeah, probably if you would take the entire average of the entire year, it's going to be something like 22 hours average. But there will be weeks where you do 8 hours or 0 hours, and weeks where you do 40 hours. So yeah, when it comes to volume, probably it's going to be in the order of, in the build of the season, of 40 to 50 kilometer runs, 200 to 350 kilometers in the bike, and about 30 kilometers in the swim, talking about volume, and the intensity is pretty low. And then when it comes to competition phase, it can go up to doubling that distance or more. So you could move up to 120 kilometers in the running. I'm talking about when I was doing this at elite level, maybe 40, 50 in the swim, and then something in the order of 7 to even 1,000 kilometers in the bike, 700 to 1,000 kilometers in the bike per week. So yeah, it's pretty,
it's a lot.
Yeah, and then of course you have to consider that on top of that you need to recover. So it's not like you get back to the house and you are ready to rock and roll, and
you have to eat.
And then you have to eat all those calories, which I was always good to eat. I think that's why I never get so skinny.
Okay, so let me ask you something. Do you know what was your energy expenditure daily at the worst weeks?
Probably you know that better than me.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking you.
You know, what I was doing, especially in those big weeks, the last big push of training, it was not my best because I was already tired. But back when I was in Boulder this season before Norseman, that I was with Ricardo Massini, one of my athletes, and Nathan Dortman that you work with. He's going to race Kona, and he's turning pro next year from France, but he lives in Australia. We were just like training 8 or 9 hours a day, and you can eat so much. Like you have probably 2 or 3 hours to eat. Yeah. Because then you go to bed. So it's basically you are eating whatever. So it's eating ice cream and eating like...
I know you like ice cream.
Yeah, like high content energy foods. Of course, they can't be healthy at that point. It's just put whatever because then you start to, I want to eat, beans and fruit, and then you can't handle the fiber because your body is so stressed from training, 35 or 30 hours a week, that you can't handle that. Or vegetables, it was impossible. So you just put like super processed food, which is not healthy at the end, but it just keeps the engine going. And you have to consider this is like 3, 4, 5 weeks per year. So it's not that bad as well. But that's like high caloric days. But regularly I try to eat fairly, healthy. I tend to be very hungry through the day. Probably it's because I used to train a lot. So I just try to eat whatever you send me to eat. And sometimes I just eat more. I never get hungry. I've never ever in my entire career have focused on losing weight. Mm-hmm. The time that I did that, which was back, I think in 2013 or 2015, I don't really remember. I got really, really skinny and really, really sick, and I couldn't perform at all. So I realized that especially for long distance triathletes, 70.3 athletes, and even though Olympic athletes, weight is not a big concern. You have to be focusing much more on the nutrient content of your foods, on eating properly, the macros, they have to be properly, and not getting hungry. I think that's a primary. If you are getting hungry, something is going on, and it's not healthy. And it's unsustainable in the long term because you will catabolize yourself. So that's something I keep coming to my athletes all the time. When you know that when I send them to you, like, talk to Mateusz, but you shouldn't be hungry. And they come back to me. It's like, are you sure Mateusz is correct? Because he's giving me a lot of food. And I'm like, yeah, it's correct. You need to eat a lot. You are training a lot. But there is this misconception that you need to get super skinny. I mean, I've been myself training with guys super skinny and super big. And it really doesn't matter. If you can if you build your motor, and you need energy to build that motor, it doesn't matter how the chassis, how you look. You need to be able to push the watts, the paces. I remember back now in Boulder, I was with Ben Hoffman, which is a fairly big guy and muscular guy. And I was also with Tyler Butterfield, like big guys. These guys are big, but they can push, and I was with very skinny guys like Nathan, who was in that ride, and also with Tim Reed, world champion of 70.3, and those guys are skinny. So it was awesome. Of course, I was way in the back just looking at them. And you have the two skinny guys and the two super big guys, and me surviving at the very back. And then you really think like it really doesn't matter. They are pushing the same amount of watts. We are all suffering the same. It's feeling exactly the same. Just the chassis is different. Mm-hmm. And you see that on world championships in Ironman, or you see that like you want to come to ITU, you see Javier Gomez. He's a fairly big guy. And then you have somebody like the Brownlees, who are fairly skinny guys. So I think it's also this misconception with social media on how you need to look to be a elite athlete, even if you are an age grouper. And I think the focus should be number one, health. Number second, performance, how you are performing, how you're feeling. And number third, if you really care about how you want to look, then you get some creams and you go to some sunny place to get some tan. But we have some genetics, we have some predispositions, and if you want to do endurance sport, you need to eat. So if you want to keep healthy, you need to put the calories in and build that motor, because it's unsustainable. When I'm talking about sustainability, I'm talking about years. Anybody can lose 15 kilos and look super ripped and push big watts for one season and then have 3 crappy seasons or retire from sport. I've seen so many amateur and professionals going that way, or, destroying their metabolism or causing severe problems, even mental health problems, going to anorexia and some other mental diseases connected with eating. So we need to be very careful about that.
Yeah. I think for amateurs, first is the look. Second is the performance. And at the end, it's health.
Yeah, I think
this is wrong direction. The opposite that you should sustain.
Yeah, I feel that our obligation as coaches and consultants in this field is to tell the truth, and the truth is the most important thing. It's
health.
Your health, then your performance, because that's why you are paying me money to get you better in the sport, and then. If you want to look good and that, maybe talk to, an image consultant or something, or buy different,
Yeah, but the triathlete is not a bodybuilder.
Yeah, nobody. I remember hearing from one coach that I really don't like, so I will not say who is him, but I heard something that I like. He said, triathlon is not a fitness or a fashion show. It's a performance show. So you can show up in the best bike, in the nicest colors, with the nicest clothes, and looking super fit. But that doesn't mean that you are fast. The only thing that matters is how healthy you get to the start line and how well prepared you are to race to your potential. Mm-hmm. And then pace it properly. So that's what I love about long distance racing. Even when I'm talking about long distance racing, for me, long distance racing is everything that goes beyond 30 minutes. So for me, half marathon is long distance racing. For me, half Ironman, sprint, super sprint, all these disciplines, anything that lasts more than 30 minutes for me, it's basically long distance. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about all those disciplines.
Back to the energy expenditure, I'm not sure if you know, but the average energy expenditure for the few worst weeks, for you it was like 6,000 to 8,000 calories per day. But for some days it was more than 10,000 calories, so it's a huge amount of food.
Yeah, I could maybe feel that because, I don't have problems in eating, and normally I eat a lot. So probably, and I feel it in my body. I don't weight myself a lot. Probably I weight myself 3 or 4 times in the entire year. So I'm not fixated with this unless I'm doing particular hydration tests. So I'm measuring exactly how much water I'm losing from, one session to the other. But to tell the truth, I don't even remember my actual weight because I'm just focusing on the differences. I would say my body weight is pretty stable. If I would tell you, maybe when I'm really heavy like now, I'm like 77 kilos. And when I'm really, really fit, I'm 75, maybe 74.5.
It's a small difference.
Yeah, it's very small difference. The body compositions do change. So I tend to have less fat when I'm more fit and I'm training more and I'm training differently than right now that I'm starting the build, for example, for Ironman Argentina. Probably now my body fat will be around 14%. And by December, before race day, it's going to be something like maybe 9 or 10%. And my weight is going to decrease. So probably my muscle mass will be there and I'm just losing fat.
Yeah, correct.
So, but I'm not really fixated into that. If I used to be, when I was much more elite, very careful, and it was very stressful for me. At some point, and that happened the last maybe 3 years of my career. If I was going to go with my kids for an ice cream and I wanted to have 4 scoops of ice cream, I did it. Like, I was just distressed out of it. I went far too many extremes. I was paleo, I was vegan, I was vegetarian.
I remember those times.
So I've tried it all in these last, and it's unsustainable. Of course, I pull really nice things from each of those. At the end, what prevails is you have to have a balanced diet. And you have to eat also what your mind is telling you to eat. I'm not saying sugar cravings and only eat ice cream, but if you feel one day you truly need to have burger for breakfast, for lunch and for dinner, just do it. unless it's not
and see how you feel.
Habit, yeah. But
it will be disaster.
Unless you don't generate bad habits in the long term, I think that should be the focus on the general picture. It's like when you have a shit workout and you are like complaining the entire week because you had that, and you are not seeing the whole picture. It's what's the tendency of the month. It's still positive. It doesn't matter. Don't over focus on the things that you did bad. Focus on what you have been doing good. So.
You've got wife, 2 kids, and several businesses, and you train a lot. How is it possible? How you do it?
It's a good question, but I think there is only one thing I don't sacrifice at all, and that's sleep. I try to sleep 8 hours every day. So one says this. Sometimes you sacrifice a little bit business. Sometimes you sacrifice a little bit sport. Sometimes you sacrifice a little bit family. It will always depend on how is the periodization of your priorities. Mm-hmm. So when business is really, really important and your family is really, really important, I will sacrifice a little bit the sport, and the other way around. What I try to do is stay consistent in the 3 of them. I always stay consistent in business, in family, and in sport. I don't switch off completely one of them. I think that's one thing. It's just changing priorities.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. One very important tip is I try to go to bed really early, let's say about 8, 9 p.m. every day or most days. So I tend to wake up really early. And when I wake up, it's when I have more energy. So I tend to work for a few hours. Sometimes I wake up at 4, 5, or 6. I work a couple of hours when everybody's still sleeping. Then I just say hi to my kids before they go to school. Normally, I don't take them. That's a help from my wife. And immediately when they are gone, I do some kind of workout. The most important workout. If I'm going to have 2 workouts in the day, that normally now that I'm, let's say, still active and racing as age grouper, I would try to do even sometimes the 2 sessions. So I have the rest of the day free for business, talking with clients, giving business consultancy, to be available for my athletes. So I will try to finish all my workouts in the first part of the day. Sometimes life happens like today, and maybe if family is not there and I return home and I can do a 1 hour run, I will do it. If not, I really don't care. And I will never exchange getting an extra workout and having less sleep. I will always prioritize sleep over everything.
Yeah, completely agree. I try to do the same. But the last priority is training.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But maybe someday I'll change it. Okay, so nowadays you work as a coach. Who is your target? What kind of clients do you work the most often?
I like to work with people who is that really knows what they want. I like the client who will come to me and tell me, I want to achieve this. And I will tell him, great. It will take you X amount of time, or it will take you X amount of, plan. Are you willing to put the work in to achieve what you think? And when I give these landscapes, normally it's years. It's nothing that is going to come immediately. So I like clients who know where they want to go, that they trust in the process and in the coach they are going to hire, and that they are willing to put the work for a long period of time. So people who is motivated, hard worker, smart, and focus on the process over the outcomes.
What disciplines do they practice most often?
I coach many different disciplines. Till this date, I don't work with a lot of people myself. We have a coaching company, probably you know this, Way to Champ. So we have already few coaches in different parts of the world working with us. So many times I would talk to a client and I will redirect this client with one of our coaches, which all of them are great professionals, because I have few available spots through the year to work personally with people. So I try to commit with very few clients myself. once it is the philosophy behind Way to Champ, for all coaches is pretty much the same. So we are passionate and professional 100% on what we are doing. But if I commit with an athlete, I want the same from him. I want commitment. I want communication. I want trust in the process. I want a lot of questioning and answering and, this interaction. I consider myself more than a coach, a mentor. So there will be these discussions. I don't know it all. Of course, I just know where to allocate time, where to tell the athlete to find the answers, to who professionals he has to go. And I just try to give the athlete the resources he needs to get better in the sport. But not only that, for me, it's much more important that he's able to translate all the concepts that he's learning with me in the sport, in the discipline, in the passion he has, either if it's triathlon, motorsports, shooting, swimming, cycling, and be able, with these concepts he learns, to be a better person himself, be a better executive, be a better businessman, be a better husband, wife, son, whatever, just a better guy or better girl. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. You are not focusing only on the training, but also at the other part of the lives of athletes.
Yeah, it's a very integral process how I approach the training. We read a lot, and the readings that I give to my athletes are not always connected to sport. The concepts I'm trying to pull from good and bad experiences while training or racing are the same, how they can translate that into their lives. And the most important, how they can get health from this and joy, how they can be happy while doing the sport, not destroying businesses or destroying family because they have to go every weekend 6 hours to the bike. No, how you pay back also to the family, to your work, and how you organize your week or your month or your year for being pretty successful in what you like, which is the sport, but without completely destroying the other areas of your life that could be family, that could be friends, that could be, you are an integral person. So it's not about, I'm going to be a triathlete, I don't see anybody else and I live in my own world.
Yeah, so you said that it's not only about training. So what kind of mistakes do you see in amateurs who work with you?
That it is all or nothing. This is the typical mistake because most of athletes, they like to go full in into something. And that's really good because that shows passion and commitment. And that's probably the way they have to do it. But that's also meaning you have to go full in sometimes in other areas of your life. It can be going full in for 10 years into triathlon if you are an amateur because you are going to be without the work and without the family. So you need to have somebody helping you to achieve those periodized processes and moments where you really need to go full in into triathlon and when it doesn't really make sense to go full in and in what capacity, at what intensities. So, yeah.
Okay. I think I don't know many coaches like you who are, consider when athletes are ready or they are not ready for training and think about other things outside of trainings, especially.
Probably this comes, I'm trying to be the coach that I never had in any of the disciplines I did.
Okay.
So when I was starting shooting when I was 40 years old, when I was about maybe 13 or 14, I qualified for the Olympics. I really don't remember. I couldn't go to the Olympics back then because of politics in Mexico. But
it was for shooting?
Yeah, but to some extent, I was self-coach. So I needed to learn to be my coach because nobody else knew exactly what to tell me what to do. So for me, it came pretty natural how to align the sights in the pistol, how to pull the trigger, the breathing, all the psychology. Let's say it's more a psychological than physical sport. But all those concepts that I was able to translate back when I was a kid, later on into combat shooting because because my disappointment back then from, let's say, sports shooting after, when I was a teenager, it was like, okay, I did all and I couldn't qualify, so I will forget about this. And then I discovered pistol shooting. Mm-hmm. So I was working with many security agencies around the world, in Spain, in France, in Germany, in Czech Republic, in USA, in Canada, in Philippines. And in that process of becoming let's say, a law enforcement consultant, a military consultant, and all, I started to get it, like, it's really hard to get someone who will teach you everything. So I was trying back then to become that guy who will teach you since the beginning everything you need to know. So my pursuit, I know that's impossible, but that's my pursuit, my passion is when I show up for coaching, that for me is a true mentorship, is I feel the obligation of giving you all the tools you will need, that you feel you need, but also that I know you will need, that will fulfill many blank spaces that you will have in the future. So it started all that back when I was in the shooting process, in that teenager kid process. And I tried to bring all that, back when I was a racing instructor and car driver instructor, when I was doing the combat sports, and later on, because I was also more mature and with more experience also in life and business and family, when I became a dad, when I became a husband. All this maturity brings you up to the point where I am now, that I'm trying just to provide the best out of me and my experiences and the experiences of other people that I know that are expert in their areas to the athlete. Because there is many times that you think, oh, this guy is gonna do this in 2 years, and then you just see it. And he's gonna crash. He's not gonna, there is some stuff, there is no shortcuts, basically, in life. Yeah, you can make, for example, a lot of money if you win the lottery, but how many people win the lottery? Like, if you are just waiting but the beauty about sport is you can win the lottery. You want to get somewhere, you need to sweat. You need to do it smart. And not necessarily by working or training more hours or more intensity or more volume or more frequency, you will get faster or stronger. There is a fine line between what you put and what it gives you. So the efficiency factor plays a key role. So giving this understanding to people into their professional lives, into their family lives, it's very interesting, because then they will realize there is a thin line between doing too much, doing too little, but pursuing their passions, being happy, staying on the path, and questioning themselves why they are doing their sport, why they are married to that woman, why they're married to that man, why they love people, why they don't love people, why they fight, and so on.
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, you work not only with athletes from triathlon or cycling, but also from motorsport and probably other kind of sports. And I know that you were at the Dakar this year. So give us a little bit of your experience from that kind of race.
Well, I've been coaching Carlos Gracida, which is the best motorcycle Dakar driver from Mexico, probably since 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And back then, I met him because I gave him some consultancy regarding hydration, because hydration is big stuff in motorcycle, in general in motorsport, because you lose a lot of sweat and electrolytes because of the equipment and the temperatures either inside the car or in the motorcycle in the desert, which is the case of Carlos in Dakar. So when I met him, I asked him, how do you train? And then I realized that the concept of periodization in motorsport is almost inexistent. And then I asked him about nutrition and strength. So basically, he was just a talented guy, training a lot of hours in the motorcycle without truly a clue on how to manage himself physiologically. Psychologically, he's a pro, of course. So then I said, man, I think we can do this. And the first year we tried it and it worked amazingly. And it came to the end okay, we decided he's not a professional driver. He's just a businessman racing Dakar with limited resources because he's sponsoring himself. So we had this very aggressive goal of being in the top 50 in the world in Dakar, with their resources. So we set that objective. I think he came 48 in Dakar this year in Peru. And it was an amazing experience being with him, following the race, driving his truck, being with his crew. We were with the Husqvarna rally team from Holland and many other countries with many professional drivers. We had some interactions as well with the Orlen team, which was our neighbor. And so I was talking with them in Polish, my limited Polish. Great drivers, all of them. And, it was interesting experience, really hardcore. I think from all the travels and all the races I've done in my life, it took me about 1 month and a half, if not 2 months, to recover from Dakar, from so many driving. We were driving in the support vehicle sometimes 10 or 12 hours a day. It's hardcore. And you sleep on the desert, super uncomfortable. You know, as a professional athlete or elite athlete, I really care about sleep and recovery. That was inexistent. You have the guys in the tents and testing motorcycles from 12 in the night to 5 in the morning before the race starts at 6. So you can't sleep because you're like the boom, boom, boom all the night in the tent. So it was cool. We ate like crap. It was just amazing. It's something I would definitely do again. But most importantly, was amazing to see the patience where Carlos was taking day by day, the commitment, the positiveness, the focus, regardless of going down in the bike or the crashes or the problems he could have, just the physical experience of being there for every stage at the beginning and at the end supporting my athlete was really special.
Okay. How the nutrition between the stages looks like?
Well, we had a camper and I was focusing that Carlos will have high quality protein and high quality carbohydrates every morning. Really easy to digestible. So normally he will have a shake. We were using WPC shakes to see if he could handle the daily. It's something that we have tested. So he was doing kind of okay. And every day it was either oatmeal with applesauce or rice with applesauce for breakfast.
So applesauce was day by day.
Yeah, because or also bananas. We include some bananas. I wanted to keep really low fiber. We talked about this. And also you have to consider, you're in the middle of nowhere. So the availability of food, of course, the organization is providing you some kind of meals, but I was even concerned about the safety of those meals, because if you have stomach issues and you want to poop in the middle of the bike, that's going to be a big problem.
Safety is the most important.
So safety
part
first.
Of
And this organization is huge. It's the same organizers as Tour de France, so they know what they're doing. They have Hercules airplanes to fly their camp from one place to the other. Like, they're experts in logistics. They have hospitals. They can operate there, in the middle of nowhere if it's needed. So they do a great job, but I didn't want to take my chances. So I was cooking for him. And sometimes in the dinner, I will give him the option of, okay, there is like chicken. I think but if there was, for example, fish, I would not let him do the fish or oily stuff. It was pretty simple. The entire, like, he's not going there for a, culinary trip. Yeah. He's going there for performance. And he was like, I remember back like in the day 8, he was like, man, I really want to eat and I'm like, when we get back to Lima, we are going to eat whatever you want, man. It's just like, soak it up, have the bananas, eat the pasta. It's like when you have guys racing Tour de France. It's pretty simple, the entire, 21 days and they have to do it. It's that mentality. So he ate like a pro, to tell the truth. Now, when it came to the race itself, he was really focused on electrolytes and hydration. We were using primarily precision hydration products, and I think that was it, and some isotonics as well. Mm-hmm. Everything super high quality. He ate from time to time like these gummies with some energy. He had some bananas from time to time, and he was flavored tired. That's my and gel tired because he was eating some gels like the last 3 or 4 stages. So we were preparing him with his wife some sandwiches, like with just bread and peanut butter and jelly or some stuff like this. And he turned out to be a good decision. He handled that pretty good.
This is common situation when athletes avoid jellies or bars because of the taste.
Yeah, too sweet. The same flavors. You have athletes that they will never have problem doing that, but
you were one of them.
I was one of them. Like when I raced Ultraman 3-day stage race, I think I went over like 120 gels, water, and salt pills from Salt Stick, and that was it.
And you won world championships.
And it worked the plan, but it's what works better for you. Many people, you give them 3 gels in a run, they're gonna go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but I think it's also because they never tried it before at the trainings.
Yeah, you need to train the gut for whatever you're doing. I mean, there is stuff that, from my perspective, you can't really absorb. And I keep seeing, especially in the ultra running community, people like having coconut oil or only peanut butter. And I mean, I think at some point, if you're running like 8 or 10 hours, you're going to collapse. I mean, that's gonna not like your stomach, no matter how much you're trained to do that. But there is also ideas from people that are hard to challenge. And you as a coach, your job is just to provide enough scientific and practical information so the athlete can make the better decisions. But you can't go into his head and control his body. That's unfair.
Okay. Were you also a vehicle driver, support vehicle at Dakar or not?
I was at the vehicles, at the support vehicle the entire time.
And did you drive or not?
Yeah, I was the driver, but I think that destroyed me pretty much. That it was not an automatic truck, so it was with the gearbox and all that shifting, and it was crazy. The roads in Lima are all turning, going, braking. They drive terribly, even worse than in Mexico. So man, it was from the braking, my lower back and my glutes, my psoas, they were destroyed like for 2 months. I couldn't even walk or bike when I came back from the race in Dakar.
I'm pretty sure that we could talk for another hour, but our time is limited. So I would like to say thank you very much for your time and tell our audience where they can find you if they want to contact with you.
I'm pretty active when it comes to scientific information and, let's call it real information, more hard information on Twitter with my name, Inaki, slash the small slash de la Parra. And if you want to follow like just nice pictures, I have Inaki de la Parra, Instagram. The same in Facebook. In Facebook, I tend to mix a little bit more. There is also personal content now that I don't have any sponsors and I don't care about it because I have still a lot of family and friends around the world. So I tend to share a lot of like my personal life with them through those 2 social networks. And when it comes to, like following me more what I'm doing now and how I train, because I'm a big believer on polarized training, and I prove to my athletes that I do that through Strava. So you can follow me in Strava as well, or just going to waytochamp.com and just contact me there at the info@waytochamp.com or my email Inaki, Inaki @waytochamp.com.
So you are everywhere.
I'm everywhere and available to anyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was a big pleasure for me and hope to see you soon or hear you soon here in podcast.
Thank you. And I forgot to mention that I learned a lot from you while you were my nutritionist. You are still are, but when I was really racing at a top level. And from all nutritionists I work in more than 20 years, I think you are the best one. So I publicly thank you for your help and the knowledge you have given me.
I really appreciate it and thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you. Gościem 11 odcinka podcastu Zaplecze Sportu był Inaki de la Parra. Wszystkie notatki do tego odcinka znajdziesz na stronie www.cezis.pl /podcast. Ja na dzisiaj serdecznie dziękuję, zachęcam do subskrypcji i pozostawienia pozytywnych komentarzy na łamach iTunes. No i co? Zapraszam na kolejny odcinek, który pojawi się jak zawsze za 2 tygodnie. Do usłyszenia.